curious how much, if at all, you think the advisory process changes from a regular school, let's say, to the new school context. Because it seems that for us, the goal of identity creation and sort of becoming comfortable with ourselves is so much more important because we haven't done this before. So I'm wondering how you think that goal informs the advisory process throughout that first year.
Well, it strikes me that being a new school, you have a tremendous opportunity to forge a culture from scratch. And we most often we're involved with schools that have already often dysfunctional cultures, and so we're trying to kind of push back the bad patterns and kind of install new ones. Whatever structures you decide to put in place for your advisory will have a lot of effect on what your school culture is, and could really distinguish your school from other schools in the sense that, going back to your language originally, you're talking about a school where students feel really powerfully connected and really enabled to be who they are and to have a voice and to make a difference. And I think it's hard for me to imagine, just having worked in schools over these years, that to have that kind of culture without having some place in the day where we really focus on some of the non-academic pieces that partly because of habit, we don't do so well in our content areas. Not that we couldn't, maybe, but we don't. And to make that an explicit goal of our school, to have that culture, that school culture and identity, I think advisory would really be helpful with that. So,
I mean, one of the things that I've seen in schools without and then with advisory is that, something happens at recess, and it's in 5th grade, and teachers just plow right ahead and get down to math, and there's no place for really doing that kind of reconciliation of and intermediary work on what can become huge issues of bullying and huge issues of girls putting each other down without a place to discuss that, I think. And if kids trust the advisory system, then that's where they can actually feel safe to bring up the fact that things aren't working when everybody's playing Foursquare at recess. And you can't teach math when everybody's upset about how somebody's cheating all the time.
I was just thinking about the social element of this. Nobody knows each other coming in, especially in that first year. And socially, everybody's at the same stage of not knowing each other. And having something where there's at least a sense of like, I sort of know that person, from the beginning. I think in a structure of advisory helps.
And often that you get to set the ground rules.
Yeah.
Because within 40 minutes it will be clear.
Yeah. Or the alpha girls.
Yeah.
Is it true that the teachers, the advisors, their training becomes very crucial?
Yeah.
And what do you think about how we can do the teacher training in that sense?
yeah. Well, I was just going to say that I don't know what the size of your middle level will be or how big your teams will be, but advisory can become the place where norms are kind of set for social behaviors across the whole team, because teachers come with different mindsets, different sets of experience, and often what happens in one room can't happen in the other room, and things are very irregular across a team. Advisory is a place where, as you say, if the training's good, if the concept is clear, if the practices are well developed, it can be an anchor for everybody. Then it starts to has influence across, and of course the other practices that we have here, the discipline practices can be shared across the team too, and they have their impact in terms of consistency.
Can I just ask a question about, do you have a sense of an ideal size of an advisory group? Have you sort of studied different size groups and see if it has a different impact?
Well, I kind of work with the number 18, It's a big number, but you know,
That's big.
12 to 18 maybe. Students, middle school students, they're really social animals. I mean, they love to have variety, and when it gets to be too small, we see this with our teacher training groups too, because one of the things that happens in our workshop is that teachers they go through the actual experience of becoming a community during the week, and when they leave, they're hugging everybody and things like it's a powerful experience. But we find that when those groups are too small, that dynamic doesn't take place as richly. So you don't want to. I don't think you'd want it to get a lot larger than that. That would be optimal. You know, somewhere between 12 and 18. But when it gets smaller than that, there's not enough richness there.
Do you ever have the situation where one advisor is sort of the lead advisor who helps structure what's going to happen, who helps, you know, plan out the activities and things like that?
Absolutely. And I think I mentioned earlier that what we usually try to do is set up a core leadership group that if they're not peer coaches, they're exemplary practitioners and are interested in serving that way. But then sometimes too we will rotate some of the planning across a team for maybe the purposes of an A+ advisory, maybe, or even the planning of activities, so that it can be somewhat more efficient, because teachers, to be really well prepared for advisory is a bit of a prep. It takes time. Anything that you're going to do well takes thought and effort. So yes, I think it's ideal to have somebody who's leadership, but I think it's also ideal to have that person, that teacher person, connected to administrative oversight so that everybody's on the same page.